Chargers are 4 games behind the Braves for the best record in the majors. The team with the best record at the end of the regular season gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs. 3 African Americans are still in contention in the U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. Coco Gauff and unranked Taylor Townsend advanced to tonight's 3rd round in the women's bracket. Coco, ranked 6th in the world, takes on Elise Mertens of Belgium. Townsend faces Carolina Muchova of the Czech Republic. Remember Townsend's name. She's an up-and-coming sister with a strong game. On the men's side, Francis Tiafoe has a 3rd-round match tonight against Adrian Manarino of France. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Strength, courage, and wisdom. It's been inside of me all along. You're listening to Tavis Smiley. I'm delighted to have you in with us today. In this hour, we're talking politics with noted scholar and media personality, Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead. We'll also delve into her new book, which has an emphasis on the beloved community, the systemic challenges marginalized neighborhoods have to navigate daily, collective identity, and the importance of voice and representation as a pathway to progress. That might sound familiar. We just wrapped Kaye Whitehead a rich and dynamic hour with Dr. Esau McCauley talking about his new book coming out on September 12th called How Far to the Promised Land? One Black family story of hope and survival in the American South. You're in the American North, up in Baltimore, over in Baltimore since I'm here in L.A. But we just talked for an hour, again, in an amazing dialogue about family narrative, personal growth, personal family journeys, and overcoming personal adversity. So I think these 2 hours are going to bookend each other nicely as we get into your text. But it's good to have you back on the program. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Tavis. It's always a pleasure to be on with you.
It is always a delight to have you on the program. Your book coming out, and people who don't understand how publishing works, there are 2 or 3 times of the year when the publishing industry drops books, and September is one of them. So there'll be a lot of books. Having done this a few times in my own career, I know how this works. In September, there are a lot of great books coming out, and so we talked about one last hour, and Dr. Whitehead's book is called My Mother's Tomorrow, Dispatches Through the Lens of Baltimore's Black Butterfly. We'll get into that in just a second. There are a couple of political things I want to just hit right quick, and then we'll move into the text. There is, again, always breaking news. We're in that political season, Kay, as you well know. A couple of things I want to just get your take on right quick, and then we'll move into the text for the rest of the hour. Donald Trump has pled not guilty in Georgia elections. This Georgia election subversion case. We sort of expected this, but I haven't had you on for a minute now, and this Trump news is getting more and more. I'm trying to find the right word. It's getting more and more of that, whatever that is, every single day. What's your read? What's your read on these latest developments with 45?
Well, I tend to use the word. It gets more and more distracting.
There you go.
Every day. I mean that is. But that is the policy of Donald Trump and the Donald Trump machine that is at work. Because I do believe behind Donald Trump, there is a machine that works to keep us distracted so we don't focus on the bigger issues that are taking place. I often argue that when we look at the Republican Party, one thing they're very good at is they're good at playing chess. Mm-hmm. They play the long game. They will give up the White House. They'll say, well, let Barack Obama live out the next 8 years. But while he's doing that, let's get back the judicial branch so we can get white, conservative, right-leaning judges in place, and we don't have to worry about the White House. Mm-hmm. We can make sure we're changing policies, practices, procedures, and laws on the local and state level. So Donald Trump is a great distraction because Donald Trump gets your emotions going. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump causes a gut reaction, a visceral reaction to Donald Trump. And while we're focused on Donald Trump, then they're changing African-American history. They're changing the curriculum. They're firing my colleagues who are teaching women's gender studies and LGBTQIA issues. He is a distraction. And what bothers me the most is the way the media works in cahoots with the political process to make sure that is front page news. As much as happening in this country right now, what happened just this weekend in Jacksonville, Florida, what we're talking about is Donald Trump pleading not guilty to yet another charge that's coming on him.
You and I are going to have a private conversation for just another minute here, a private conversation in a public space. Everything you said, I concur with. I've said 1,000 times. I'm so over the mainstream media for the way they are going about this. And they didn't learn anything from covering him the first time around, obviously. They're making the same mistakes again. And yet, because it is news, and because if we take our eyes off of him and completely ignore him, and I didn't hear you say ignore him. I'm not suggesting that you did. But there's a difference between being distracted by him and ignoring him. You're not suggesting, given that our democracy hangs in the balance, that we ignore him, are you?
No, we cannot ignore Donald Trump. Donald Trump is dangerous. Yeah. Okay. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Donald Trump, along with people like Governor DeSantis, believe in helping to enact a fascist nation. Mm-hmm. So we cannot ignore him. We can stop being distracted by him. Add him to the plate of things that we need to focus on, and do not throw all of our attention behind Donald Trump, which is what mainstream media does. They take everything off the front page except Donald Trump, as if the other things that are happening are not equally, if not more important, because I would argue that Jacksonville, Florida is nothing but an outtake from what happened with the election of Donald Trump.
Yeah. When we come forward, that's Donald Trump. There's some breaking news this morning about one Clarence Thomas.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. Some breaking news about Clarence Thomas. I got to get Kaye Whitehead's take on, and then we'll get straight into this book. You're listening to Kaye Whitehead and Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bussin', truckin', Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection consistent with the CHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambiance temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580 is inviting you to join us on Saturday, September 16th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for our very first economic empowerment event for the community. This event is free and is powered by Caltrans. We're doing this in association with Rambo House, and here's Rambo to tell you more.
Contracts. I'm going to say it again for all of us small business owners out there. Contracts. Rambo House, KBLA, Tavis, me. Oh my God, this is going to be massive. I truly thank Caltrans for giving us the opportunity to focus on contracts. Listen, that's what it's all about to be a small business in LA. That's how we hire our own. That's how we expand our community is contracts. KBLA1580.com is for you to have a seat at our contracts-focused event. Contract Ready does it again. We had over 900 last time. So you guys know how exciting this is. And if you just think that you want to get into contracts and you're close to it, bring your friends out for September 16th at the Marriott Hotel. Listen, you know where to register. KBLA1580.com. Come see me. I can't wait to see you. Let's do it, Tavis.
So be sure to go to KBLA1580.com for all the details. We'll see you Saturday, September 16th.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, Kaye Whitehead, as much as we don't want to talk about it, we just dispensed with a brief conversation about breaking news on Donald Trump not pleading guilty in the Georgia election subversion case. And we go from Donald Trump to Clarence Thomas, who's made some news today. We've all been talking about Clarence Thomas. I know you have on your program as well, about all these gifts and these luxury trips and all the ways in which these billionaire mega donors, often many of whom who have cases in front of the Supreme Court, have been taking care of him and Samuel Alito and other conservatives on the court. And I guess the message is finally getting through to Clarence Thomas. This morning, for the first time ever, he reports that he's had some private trips and some other gifts from Harlan Crow. I won't get too much into it. We all know the backstory, but for the first time ever this morning, he actually disclosed this. What do you make of that disclosure?
My hope is that we're seeing the first steps toward what should be an impeachment process in the wakes. It's not about whether or not I agree politically with Clarence Thomas, because I do not. I do not think that he has ever had our best interests at heart, even when he benefited from things that our ancestors fought and died for. Yeah. But this latest allegation, when you talk about not just the flights on the private planes or skybox tickets to sporting events, I'm thinking about the fact that a transaction that ended up paying the tuition for a family member. Mm-hmm. You're talking about purchasing real estate that belonged to his mother from her home. Oh, you're talking about even extravagant vacations that both him and his wife took. The people that were paying and bankrolling these trips were not just personal friends. They were people who had a personal interest in the position in which you hold. And that is where the concern is. What needs to happen and what has to take place is there should be steps moving toward impeachment, starting with Clarence Thomas and going through the board of anyone that has used their position to get financially secure and rich personally, whether it's rich in trip experience, rip in the in tuition for a family member, or actually money into your pocket. This is dangerous territory that we've moved into, and maybe Clarence Thomas is finally beginning to understand that you have broken the law, not just broken the ethical laws, you've broken the law in terms of what you're doing in your position.
Mm-hmm. One way to read this is that Justice Thomas made this move today because he wants to stave off a pending impeachment proceeding. That's one way to read it. I'm not so sure I read it that way. I don't know that Democrats in the Senate, who oftentimes are milquetoast and spineless,
Yes,
are ready for a fight with Clarence Thomas over impeaching him for this behavior that, again, is absolutely unacceptable, as you put it. But I just don't see any evidence as yet that Democrats have the spine to take on that fight, even though they should.
No, they do not have the spine. I mean, that's unfortunate to say. We also understand that Clarence Thomas, who is very familiar with the long game, has played the long game of waiting until he came into a position of having extreme power. Clarence Thomas is a very powerful man in this country. And if that is the fight that they want to enter into, they have to be prepared for everything it's going to entail. I know we often talk about Clarence Thomas, we make jokes. I am not that person.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he was not very smart when he got onto the Supreme Court from the EEOC days, we can talk about that. The fact that he has been sitting there and been exposed to the inner workings of our country for as long as he's been there, he's outlived folks that have come in the door with him, which means he's learned something, which means he's much smarter than people give him credit for. He's been there since, 91? The fact that he has navigated through all these grounds. And the biggest problem I think that people should understand about Clarence Thomas that the American public does not seem to get is that you don't hear him speak publicly during any of the debates that are happening, but he does speak through his writings. If you go back and you read his dissents, you would understand that where we are today, Clarence Thomas has been planning for this for a long time. He's very smart, very calculating, and any move that he makes has been well thought out and planned, even a next step beyond this.
Yep. You remember well, and I remember well, of course, his confirmation hearings and the whole Anita Hill moment and all of that. Quickly, what do you make of the fact, and I'll move on, what do you make of the fact, to your point, that Clarence Thomas hasn't just been there a long time, he is now the longest serving justice on the court?
Yes, that's what I'm saying in terms of the amount of power that he has. He is the most powerful voice sitting there simply because he has outlived everyone. Something that did Dr. King talk about how longevity has a benefit?
Yeah.
Right? There's something about longevity. Yes, it has its place. You sit in a job and you wait out everyone. What happens? You are no longer the person that opens the door, right? Because you're not the newbie on the court. You've seen how this has worked. You understand that you've been laying breadcrumbs to help lawyers get to cases before you, and you're able to look at the law and make long-range decisions. That's why I believe he's very dangerous, he's very powerful, he's very calculated. Why has he come forward? We have to think it's not because he thinks there's a fight happening and he wants to stave off. No, there's already something in place because that's how he's done everything.
Nope.
I mean, Anita Hill was right when she told us that we should beware and be careful.
Yeah, we didn't listen though, but I digress.
We did not listen. I listened. The world. I listened for people who were sitting before that. And we think about the President Joe Bidens of the world who were there in the room, holding her over the rail. They did not listen. Black women listened. They put out a piece in the New York Times saying, "We stand with Anita. We believe Anita. We believed her, and we still do." Yeah.
Let me ask one other final question, because you just said something just now that sort of triggered me, if you will, and that it is this. It's an unpopular conversation to have, but you and I do this every day, so we can handle it. I marvel sometimes when I think of all of the bad public policy that Joe Biden was connected to.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it real.
Let's keep it real.
When I think of all the bad public policy that Joe Biden was connected to, with specific regard to black people. And women. And women, exactly. And then I juxtapose that with the fact that black folks saved his campaign in South Carolina.
Yeah. Women.
There you go. Women again. Black women. There you go. And then I look at all that he has done symbolically, if not substantively, all that he's done symbolically to remind black folk, I know you got my back and I got your back. And so you get Kamala Harris, you get KBJ, you get Michelle Cook on the Fed, you get all that. You get Juneteenth as a national holiday. You get
we asked for reparations and we got Juneteenth.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that.
Exactly. But Joe Biden does all this stuff symbolically, but but in the back of my mind, I never forget all of the bad public policy that Joe Biden was connected to when it comes to black people. It is an interesting balance or lack thereof. And somewhere down the road, somebody will write the book about how this guy was like Houdini, that he did he put his name on all this bad public policy for black people, and then black people, overwhelmingly, helped this guy get in. And I'm not suggesting that he wasn't the best candidate. If it's Trump or Biden, I'm going with Biden. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying that at some point somebody's going to focus on that duality, and when they do, how are they going to navigate through that, Kaye Whitehead?
Well, you see, here's what's interesting about President Joe Biden. He didn't just put his voice to these issues that you're talking about. He put his pen. He wrote the first draft of the crime bill.
That's right.
So he also put his thoughts on paper that led to the breakup of black family households. There's a reason why the New York Times published a piece 3 years ago saying, where are all the missing black men in jail through the policy through the crime bill? So we can lay so much of this at the feet of President Joe Biden. People don't want to have that conversation because for some reason there is this fear in our community. If we critique, if we look closely at their record, then that means we're not being loyal. It means that, we can do both things. I can critique President Obama and still understand, the role of President Obama. I can critique President Joe Biden's past because you cannot tell me that we're living in a time that the past does not inform the present and help us to make some decisions about the future. President Joe Biden was there in the room. He reached across the aisle to the very same men that have set up policies today that are impacting us. You've given us a lot of things. You say you've been saved. I believe this happened under the presidency of Barack Obama. That's what saved you and brought you back to the black community.
Yeah.
Like Anita Hill said, we don't want your apologies. Nobody wants to hear I'm sorry.
Right.
What can you do to do restorative work? Not just apologies. I think President Joe Biden is a unique case, but I also think it speaks to something deep within the black community because we move with such fear around the political process that we can't be critical. Because if we're critical, then that means Trump's going to win. And if we're critical, it means you're disloyal. No, we can still be critical and demand what we want and still show up to vote. We actually have the ability to do all of that.
Yep. Everybody knows all the trouble I got myself into with my critique during the Obama era, and that's an old story.
Oh, my word. Yes, I know.
And thank God for Jesus, I survived. But it was a tough 8 years for yours truly. I raised that only because you raised it when you mentioned his name a moment ago, and my question is not so much about Obama as it is about whether or not, to the brilliant point you just made, you think that the black community learned anything from this inability that we had at that time to offer even a loving critique of a black man who happened to be leading the American empire. I just did an interview yesterday, and somebody asked me, it's amazing. It's been almost 2 decades now. It feels like that to me, and people still ask me about my Obama critique. Well, what did you mean? And it's a question. I'm okay with the fact. I accept the fact. It's a question I'm going to be asked the rest of my life about what I said about Obama back in the day, and the point that I laid on yesterday in this interview was that, as far as I'm concerned, I think you and I may agree here, we'll see. I don't care what color the president is. There is no way you can be a black person in America and not have a critique of anybody who is the head of the American empire. You cannot not have a critique of anybody who's the head of the American empire. I don't care if it's your mama. If it's your mama or your daddy and they lead the American empire, you cannot not have a critique of that person. And so I'm wondering whether or not you think we've learned anything about how to lovingly critique black folk in positions of power, even when they're iconic, if that makes sense.
We are still not ready. If I wanted to get my phone calls ringing on my show if I even begin to critique Barack Obama, if I don't stand in formation and lift him up as the greatest president in the history of this country, if I don't acquiesce and say, yes, he raised the dead and walked on water, then the phones will be ringing, calling for me to be fired. Because for some reason in the black community, there are people we can't critique. You cannot critique President Obama. You cannot critique Dr. King. Like, it just, the list keeps going as if there's something to be lost by being critical. But I also know that one of the reasons why you have this is because, I get it, so few of us, and in Barack Obama's case, only one of us, have been able to ascend to that height, that as black folks, we need to fall in line and support overwhelmingly just the process itself, the fact that he had this victory. And you got to keep your name off of the Obamas and of course Beyonce. Like, there's some people you just can't critique. You just can't.
The beehive will come after you.
You cannot.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot critique capitalism at work.
Yeah.
You cannot. You have to pretend that it's all about our people. And I get that. I get that we're not ready, but it makes for dangerous ground, because the people who do critique the Obamas, or even just the idea of capitalism at work, when I think of the Keonga Taylors and even Kim, they come under fire.
Yeah.
It's a career under fire if you so dare to speak. You can't say anything about Kamala Harris. You cannot. And right now, Joe Biden is held in the same regard. Like, you cannot critique Joe Biden, because if you do, it means you want Trump to win. No, I just want to be critical, because I think we should stop accepting every crumb just because they've convinced us that we're hungry. Yeah. We have to say enough. We have to demand more. I'm making notes as you talk. It's adding names to this list. It is an ever expanding list, and you're right. You can't say nothing about the Obamas. You can't say nothing about Beyonce. You cannot. My goodness, you cannot.
Yeah, Kaye Whitehead is not on that list, and Tavis Smiley is not on that list. But
my goodness, the list gets longer. But it also the list also gets gatekept by people who are both inside and outside the academy.
Yeah.
Because it is. I would love to do this kind of full critique of Beyonce, like that. That's future work, right? When I have nothing to lose, because I think that there are lessons to be learned about what does capitalism in practice, daily practice, look like. But we're not ready for that. I just think that we lift up these so-called leaders, and they become gods. Yeah. Because only gods are beyond critique. The rest of them, the rest of them should be looked at with a critical eye. It doesn't take away from what you're doing, but shouldn't iron sharpen iron is what I always ask.
Nope, I'm with you on that. Her new book, which I haven't even gotten into yet, we'll spend the rest of our time talking about that. It's called My Mother's Tomorrow, Dispatches Through the Lens of Baltimore's Black Butterfly. It drops on September the 4th. And when we come forward, I want to just start with just a, I guess I can call it a tribute or a testament, maybe a critique about the city of Baltimore. The city of Baltimore, I love the city of Baltimore, Baltimore City, as we say. It is at the epicenter. It's a character, frankly, in her text. So we'll start talking just about the city of Baltimore, and then we'll jump from there. You're listening to Kaye Whitehead right now on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says Hurricane Idalia left behind major damage. DeSantis said search and rescue efforts are still underway and crews are actively working to restore power across the state. The governor said all bridges impacted by the storm have since been cleared. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is examining details surrounding a fatal officer-involved shooting of a black man in South Haven, according to a preliminary report. A tactical squad unit from the DeSoto County Sheriff's Office went to the house to execute an arrest warrant for DeMarcus Williams. Upon arrival, the suspect allegedly pointed a gun at law enforcement from inside a home. Officers then opened fire, killing Williams. Family members say that he was shot in the back. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Roadwork slow in the drive in Willowbrook on the 105 today. West 105 Wilmington towards Central. That right lane shut down till about 2 this afternoon. We're loaded up here from the 710. The 605 North at Alondra Boulevard looks like a wreck onto the right side. Stay to the left there. Griffith Park, if you're traveling the 134 eastbound side of the 134 at Riverside Victory, look out for a wreck onto the right shoulder here. Mission Hills, traveling the 118 freeway westbound approaching the 405, seen a wreck onto the right shoulder. And Sherman Way on the 405 south at Sherman Way, we have a crash in the center divider. That has slowed us there from at least Devonshire.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Want to save big on custom faux wood blinds, shutters, cellular shades, and more? Shop Blindster today and save up to 50% over comparable blinds from brick-and-mortar stores. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. The Dodgers take a 4-game winning streak into a showdown series with the Atlanta Braves. The Dodgers are 4 games behind the Braves for the best record in the majors. The team with the best record at the end of the regular season gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs. 3 African Americans are still in contention in the U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. Coco Gauff and unranked Taylor Townsend advanced to tonight's 3rd round in the women's bracket. Coco, ranked 6th in the world, takes on Elise Mertens of Belgium. Townsend faces Karolina Muchova of the Czech Republic. Remember Townsend's name. She's an up-and-coming sister with a strong game. On the men's side, Francis Tiafoe has a 3rd-round match tonight against Adrian Manarino of France. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Allocution of Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas, voiced by Ben Guillory. Good morning, Your Honor. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address the court. I've had a full and intense 20 months to reflect on the circumstance in which I find myself. It is true that I have chosen to exercise my constitutional rights as a citizen to offer the best possible defense for myself. But I feel that it's important, Your Honor, to make clear to you that I in no way want to convey anything but respect for you and for this court. Further, I want to assure you that when this is completed, I will accept the outcome of the judicial process and give full and respectful compliance in accordance with the law. Your Honor, I believe it's fair to say that this case exists somewhere between what is clearly legal conduct on one end and clearly illegal conduct on the other. In between, there is a line that distinguishes actions that are legal and actions that may be ill-advised but not illegal. While I definitely disagree as to whether I crossed that line into illegal conduct, I acknowledge with clarity where I belong was at the end of the spectrum where there would be little, if any, question of even the appearance of unlawfulness. The very perception that I deviated from proper conduct in this matter is truly distressing as well as harmful, and I deeply regret it. My actions and the fallout from those actions have hurt my family, beginning with my wife of 44 years, who should never have had to go through an ordeal like this. I apologize to her with every breath and with my whole heart. And I apologize to my sons and daughter-in-law and grandchildren, as well as other family members whose lives have been disrupted and traumatically impacted. Additionally, the anguish that I feel causes me to say I'm sorry to all of my constituents, colleagues, and employees who have believed in me for so many years, but who may now have doubts. I sincerely apologize to them not only for playing a role in bringing about those doubts, but also for no longer being able to be there for them in service. I can only trust and believe that the future will afford me the opportunities to continue to find ways to serve them and their families, to remove doubt, and to restore faith. Your Honor, I give you and my former constituents and all those here today my pledge that I will find a way to continue to learn from this devastating experience, to emerge from it as a more conscientious person, and to go forward once this is behind us with humility, with renewed commitment to service, and with undaunted hope for a purposeful life dedicated to the communities who rightfully expect and deserve the very best of me. Your Honor, I thank you.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Our guest in this hour is Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead. She's an award-winning radio host, esteemed scholar, all-around brilliant sister. Her new book, coming on September 4th, is called My Mother's Tomorrow, Dispatches Through the Lens of Baltimore's Black Butterfly. As I said moments ago, Kay, I want to start with you framing for us the city of Baltimore. As I said, it's more than just a character in your book, but talk to me just broadly about Baltimore City, and then we'll get into the text.
Well, Baltimore, I always say, is a microcosm of America. That if you really want to understand what is happening across this nation, and you need some checkpoints to figure out the direction that the country is going in, look to Baltimore City. We are ground zero for redlining. It started here. During the time of American slavery, this is one of the largest free black communities that came in contact with enslaved black Americans. We actually owned this city at that time. And when you started introducing massive economic underdevelopment, when you introduced redlining right here in this city, you set up a process that has continued to dismantle and in almost all kind of ways disable the improvement of the black community. Baltimore City is where we are as a country. It's a beautiful city. Of course, I love Baltimore City, but I look at the issues that we're struggling with, and you can see them on a smaller level here in Baltimore City, and then you can amplify it for the nation.
For those who only know Baltimore City through The Wire, you say what?
I push back against that because people use The Wire as a way to define Baltimore City. And it's almost like saying that every black family reunion is like soul food, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always turn out like that. But what The Wire did get right is it shows the areas in Baltimore City that are so troubling. One of the things that's most unique about Baltimore City is you have black faces in high places, which lets you know if it's just about having black folks in positions of power, if that's what transforms a city, then Baltimore City should be Wakanda, right? Black folks in power for quite a number of years. It's not about that. It's about systemic racism. And that's why Baltimore is so powerful as an example, because it's not just about who sits in the power seats. It's about the systemic power system that is at work. And it doesn't matter whether or not you have a black man in the White House. The powers are going to be the same.
And finally, on Baltimore, and we'll get right to the book, My Mother's Tomorrow. Again, it's a central character in the book. To those who look at, just like, and I'm getting really disturbed by this, when folk on the right want to talk about black crime, they point to Chicago, right? And increasingly, when they want to talk about political corruption, they point to Baltimore. you saw that coming, didn't you? You saw that coming.
I did see that coming.
Yeah. For those who want to put Baltimore in that frame, you say what?
Well, I always push back against that. I pushed back against it when Donald Trump singled out Baltimore City, when he was talking about the rat-infested cities. I went on news sources all over. In fact, I came on your show and talked about it, that we pushed back against, we were saying things like, take Baltimore out of your mouth, right? That was the easy way of saying it. But what I was really getting to with using that terminology that my sons would use, take us out of your mouth, is that if you're looking to critique, don't start with the city of Baltimore. There are people who are extremely vulnerable, who are actually trying to do everything they can to survive white supremacy. That's what's at work in Baltimore. Don't blame the people for the infrastructure crumbling. Blame the folks that are in a position of power. You don't want to do that. You want to blame the people at the bottom of the pyramid and not those who constructed it. That's why it is so difficult. And that's really what white supremacy looks like at work. You blame us for the issues that you set up that we're trying to survive. Because actually all we're trying to do is survive whiteness every day.
So talk to me then about My Mother's Tomorrow, dispatches through the lens of Baltimore's Black Butterfly, Kaye Whitehead.
Well, I want to let people know, first of all, what the Black Butterfly is. Some people might not be familiar with that terminology. The wonderful thing, and this is based upon research that Dr. Lawrence Brown did, that if you look at a map of Baltimore City, there is a white L that runs through the city of Baltimore. And it's actually an L shape. It is the white, most economically advantaged communities in Baltimore City sit directly in the middle of the city. They have a free bus line. The police are there to protect and serve. They have all the wonderful amenities you should get when you're a homeowner. It sits and cuts through the heart of the city. Around that white L, you have Black communities that make up a butterfly pattern. And the farther away you sit from the white L, the more economically challenged you are. You sit in the white L, the life expectancy is 83 years. You go 5 minutes over to Freddie Gray's neighborhood, the life expectancy is 63. A 20-year difference with a 5-mile radius. So the Black Butterfly is where I spent my time. I did a deep 3-year ethnographic study in the Black Butterfly. I caught the bus, and I would spend time in each one of those communities talking to the people sitting on their porches, and they told me, can you tell our story? Can you make sure that we are no longer forgotten? My Mother's Tomorrow is their stories.
And give me a sense of what you heard from these persons. Give me a sense of what their stories, what's at the epicenter of their unheard, untold stories.
So I'll give you three.
Sure.
Three very quick stories. One is Poe Homes. In 2019, the community of Poe Homes did not have water for almost 3 weeks. The entire system was cut off. And there was all this video that went around the country where you saw Black people trying to get water from a fire hydrant, using pots and pans. They weren't able to go to work because the water was cut off and nobody was concerned. So I set up a system through my radio show, taking water to them. And this is when the woman said, please tell our stories. We are forgotten here. We don't want to be forgotten. They think we're invisible, Dr. K. We are not. Visibility was added to her story. The second is when I went into the schools over in the Black Butterfly. I remember the students were talking to me about violence. And one student said she has to always tell herself they can't kill us all. She said, I think about this when I hear the gunshots outside my door, when I'm sitting in the tub trying to do my homework, when I'm walking through this trying to get to my school. I just have to keep telling myself they can't kill us all. Her story's in the book. And the third one, which is the one that always touches my heart, is I met 2 veterans. They were sitting on their porch, and they called me up to tell me their story. And I remember one of them said, Baltimore's my Beirut. He said, I went in other countries, I fought, I came home, and the biggest battle I ever fought was the battle at my own home. This is where I had to fight. This is how I learned how to survive.
Somebody once said that it is the telling of truth that allows the suffering to not be rendered invisible. It is the telling of truth that allows the suffering to not be rendered invisible. We'll talk about that with Kaye Whitehead when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Watering Your Lawn During the Hottest Time of the Day and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
As I say oftentimes, Kay, I'm not naive in asking this question, but as I mentioned moments ago, that powerful frame, it is the telling of truth that allows the suffering to not be rendered invisible. And so if somebody does not speak the truth, then the suffering, again, is swept under the rug, it's rendered invisible, and we can't see it, much less wrestle with it. I guess my question is why you think it is that we don't want to wrestle with the truth of the stories that these persons have to share and tell.
I think because the truth hurts, and the truth requires us to take a long look at what we are doing to not support people who are in that current position. I'm trying to walk a fine line, Tavis. I will be very honest. Mm-hmm. But Baltimore City is my canvas. Baltimore City is my home. But I am not from Baltimore. Mm-hmm. So I am often reminded that I'm a visitor to Baltimore City. Because Baltimore City, you have communities that are built on the backs of people who've been here for years. Mm-hmm. They're tied to the soil of Baltimore City. My sons are tied to the soil of this city, and there's a sense of being tenacious, of being a fighter, fighting against all the odds that seek to keep you in that situation where you can't move forward. I want to honor that while critiquing it. That's that fine line. Mm-hmm. So when people are not willing to take a hard and critical look at what's going on in Baltimore City and realize that 2 Baltimores, there's 3 Baltimores. That's a different conversation. People often say there's a white Baltimore and a black Baltimore. I say there's a third one because within the black community, there are 2 Baltimores. There's the Baltimore people who are economically disadvantaged in this city. Black Baltimoreans who are struggling to keep their water warm, who are living in communities where there's lead in the soil. It's like the Brooklyn Homes community that had the deadliest mass shooting in the history of Baltimore City last month, in which 30 people got shot. That's a different Baltimore than the one that I live in. Mm-hmm. And we're both black folks. Yeah. There's a Baltimore for black folks that are economically advantaged, where you live very close to the White L, if not in the White L. I am not struggling with this, struggling with in Brooklyn Homes. So when people who sit outside of the black butterfly, black folks are not willing to not just critique. It's easy to critique. A better question is to ask, what are you doing to help white supremacy remain in place?
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because you mentioned one C word. I wanted to introduce another C word. Your C word is critique. My C word is complicity. Is there room? Is there room in this conversation? Put another way, is there room in the critique for a conversation about complicity, or is that going to get you in trouble?
No, I think that there are a lot of folks who are complicit. I think that when people in this country think about power and privilege, for some reason we think it's something we have to give up so that another person can have.
Mm-hmm.
That in order for you to get privilege, it means I have to lose privilege. That is kind of that white supremacist mindset.
Mm-hmm.
That's that Western ideology. That's the manifest destiny at work. Nobody can succeed if I'm going to succeed. There is a different way that is more connected to who we are at the base as African people, that I only succeed when you succeed. That's a different ideology. And the idea of being complicit means I have to look away, because if I help you, I might become vulnerable. I might have to give up something. And I don't want to give up something I've worked so hard to achieve, as if my victory is a singular victory and not based upon all the sacrifices of the people who came before me.
You said something a moment ago that I want to interrogate when we come forward in our remaining moments with Dr. Kaye Whitehead, and that is why we advance this notion in this country that privilege is, in fact, a zero-sum game. We'll get our take on that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The rent is too damn high. KBLA joins you in calling for affordable housing. The LA Tenants Union is a diverse, tenant-led movement fighting for the human right to housing for all. The LA Tenants Union demands safe, affordable housing and union rent control. They organize against landlord harassment, mass evictions, and displacement, and mobilize for the repeal of the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins Act. The LA Tenants Union is on a mission to strengthen tenants' political power through education, advocacy, and direct action. To get help with your eviction or other landlord-tenant issues, take action for justice, or become a member, visit latenantsunion.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
I was just reading a quote yesterday, Kaye Whitehead, from a famous quote from Muhammad Ali that you may recall. And Ali once said, "I never want to be accused of looking down on those who look up to me. I never want to look down on those who look up to me." Why in this country do you think that we see privilege as a zero-sum game?
I think privilege has to be seen as a zero-sum game within a system that's based upon capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism only works when the people that are upholding it are complicit. That somewhere in this American dream that's been stuffed down our throats is the belief that if I just work hard enough, I can work myself out of the cycle of poverty, generational poverty. And just by the fact if I work a little bit harder, then the generational wealth that I have received can be credited to how hard I am working and not with the years of white supremacy at work. I think that we are complicit. We believe the lie. And that there are people in this country, black folks and some white folks as well, who have been working hard every day, 2, 3, 4 jobs, and they will never work themselves out of the cycle of poverty. And we believe you just have to work harder. There is no time in 24 hours to work harder if you're born into an impoverished condition, because we like to hold up the outliers. Well, come on, LeBron did it. Oprah did it. Come on. We hold up the outliers who are not the rules, who are not really part of the experience that we're looking at. And I think that's where the difficulty is. And until we are challenged to do what Dr. King talked about, which was dismantling capitalism, he called it one of the 3 evils. Until we do that, then it's always going to be a zero-sum game, and it's always going to split our community around this issue of class, because Dr. King did say that was the next frontier, not race, but class.
Yeah. My read of your text, though, when all is said and done, is that what you really put together here in this book, My Mother's Tomorrow, is I think it's a love letter to Baltimore City. Would you argue that?
No, I would agree. It's the love letter to the people who live in the Black Butterfly. Mm-hmm. It's my way of saying I see you. That maybe the world doesn't see you, maybe the world does not hear you, but I see you and I heard you, and I try to do my best in telling your stories.
Yeah. And finally, what do you think it means to everyday people, as Sly Stone would say, to simply be seen? What does it mean just to be seen?
That when you're seen, there's this belief that you matter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, being seen is a part of being a part of the larger conversations. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're not just saying we want you to love us. We want you to see us. Mm-hmm. Because when you see us, you can see the conditions that we're living under. You can see the lack of humanity extended towards our community. When you see us, by looking at us, then you recognize that we are here and we are a part of this country and a part of this conversation. As my dad says, you have to look hard so you can see.
Yeah.
Sometimes you overlook what is in front of you simply because you don't want to see it.
I love that. You got to look hard so you can see. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead, PhD, is a professor of communication and African-American and African Studies at Loyola University, Maryland, 3-time Emmy-nominated documentary filmmaker, that is, author and award-winning radio host of Today with Dr. K on WEAA 88.9 FM, my favorite radio station in Baltimore. Kay, it's always good to have you on this program. Congrats on the book. Once again, the book is called My Mother's Tomorrow, and it comes out on September the 4th. And that's all you need to know for now. Kay, good to talk to you. We'll do it again somewhere down the road.
Thank you. Anytime. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care of yourself. Hour 3 of Tavis Smiley, when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
We thank you for joining us on this Thursday. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A judge is considering arguments in a Jefferson